Hello, this is Michael Steffen, and I am doing a presentation for ASL titled ASL Sentence Structures, and I'm going to discuss the 8 different types of sentence structures that are used in ASL. We're going to begin with simple sentences. Simple sentences typically use any word order, and they consist of a subject and a verb. They're typically 2 to 3 signs long, and it's important to remember that non-manuals play a large role in signing to get over expression and what's being conveyed by the signer. A couple of examples of simple sentences that I've given are I love animals and I love tea. As we can see here that I love animals, when glossed, there's a minimum of 4 different ways of doing it. There are additional ways of doing it, but the ones I've included would be me love animals, animals love me animals love, and love animals me. And the second example which was I love tea, when glossed, would be me love tea love me tea love, or love tea me. There are numerous examples in our textbook, but these are 2 that I chose and actually used in past assignments. Next, we have the second sentence structure, which is negation. And when the sign not is put at the end of a sentence, negation is added. Sometimes the head shaking, no also will be signed not. And it's important here that your non-manuals are used. In the examples I've given, John is not buying a house, so you can see that the negation would be over not. So at this point in example A, John not buy house, when you sign not, you would nod your head no. Same thing with B, John not buy house. During not buy house signing part of the sentence, you would be nodding your head no. And then finally we have C, John buy house. And in this case, if the non-manual is not used, it actually sounds like a statement, so it's important that negation is used. So in this case, you would be John buy house, and then buy house part would be no. You would nod your head no, indicating that it's not what happened. Important little rules in order to better understand signing and glossing. The third sentence structure to be discussed is conditional sentences. Like the topic comment, conditional sentences are stated in 2 parts. Typically, the conditional sentences must have the condition first. The comment will always be about the referent and the condition. And generally, conditional sentences are futuristic. Important to note here are the non-manuals, raising of the eyebrows, tilting the head, hold sign of the future clause. And on a majority of my slides, you'll see the non-manuals first. It doesn't appear that way in the book, but I sort of struggled for most of the year with my non-manuals because I was always concentrating and focusing on the vocab and not thinking about the manuals and trying to recall the vocab itself, because there's such a large volume of it coming that I would always get told, pay attention to the non-manuals, focus on the non-manuals. So I think it's important, and I put them in my text first because it is important that you pick up on the non-manuals, because they do make a difference when you're signing. Here we have 2 examples of conditional sentences that I've provided. In example 1, it states, if you spend your dollar, you will have nothing. When glossed, you spend dollar, you have nothing. And then the second example, if he arrives late, what will she do? I've glossed, suppose she comes late, do what you. And I think it's important here that we remember when we're signing the condition, your eyebrows must be raised, and then they will be lowered when you comment about the condition. It's sometimes when you're doing these things, it's hard to remember, and I think that's why, as you will see in ASL, that you'll go over it over and over and over, so that it becomes second nature. But in the beginning, you need to be patient and with yourself and stick with it, and then eventually it will start to piece together and come together toward the end. But yeah, something to remember when you are signing conditional sentences. The fourth sentence structure that we discussed is the time, topic, comment sentences. I think it's important here to remember that ASL is structured by word order in which an event occurred. The topic is typically mentioned first, then the subject of the event, then the comment about the topic or subject. Also important are the non-manuals: maintaining eye contact, raising your eyebrows, tilting your head forward, and holding the last sign. All important when signing time, topic, comments. In addition to remembering the non-manuals, time indicator sentences must be addressed. And these are sentences, these sentences start with time verbs. So if time is not signed at the beginning of the sentence, it should be placed as close to the subject as possible. Some time adverbs that you'll use are words such as now, soon, next, tomorrow, year, last summer, or even recently. The time indicator allows the addressee to understand if the sentence is in the past, the present, or the future. So it's really important in allowing the person you're signing with to know what time period you're speaking about. The fifth sentence structure to be discussed are the simple yes-no questions. These are my favorite sentences to sign. They're really simple, and I sign them the fastest, so I like doing them. They basically are just short sentences that can use any word order. A simple sentence will have a subject and a verb, and they're simple to sign. An example would be I have here would be, would you like to do math? And they would just be saying math, you do. And it's important here that you use your non-manuals, which would be the eye contact, the raising of the eyebrows, that tilting the head forward. And remember that the signs alone don't ask the question. There's a high importance given to the non-manual when addressing somebody with a simple yes-no question. Next up, we have the long yes-no questions. And when compared with the simple yes-no questions, it's important to remember that the simple yes-no questions don't require ASL word order. However, if the yes-no question requires an explanation before a yes-no response, ASL word order and sequence of events are needed. An example that I've given here would be, will she close the door? When lost, it would read, closed door, will she? So it's important here that you use your non-manuals, head tilted forward, raised eyebrows, and eye contact. All typically occur on the last sign of the last phrase. So in this case, you would sign closed door, and then you would really emphasize the non-manuals with will she. Important to remember with long yes-no questions. The seventh sentence structure we will discuss now is our rhetorical questions. And it's important to know that the signer asks the question and then answers it in a rhetorical question. It's important also that you use the correct non-manual signals to indicate that the question was asked and will be answered by the signer. You don't want them to answer your question as if you're making a statement. And then I think it's also important to remember that when you're signing a rhetorical question, that you hold the last sign of the rhetorical question before you answer it. So I think a lot of times this is done for effect, but it's important that you do have that pause there, as well as constant eye contact and raising of the eyebrows. A couple of examples I've given as for rhetorical questions are example 1, which reads, can she read? When gloss would read, or would be signed, read, she know, yes. And then example 2, he knows ASL would be signed, finger spelled ASL, he know, yes. I think it's important to remember that if the signer is asking a rhetorical question, their head should be tilted to the side or forward, with the eyebrows raised up. Important when doing rhetorical questions. So the eighth and final sentence structure we'll be discussing now are the WH questions, or the information-seeking questions, and these are questions which ask who, what, when, where, why, and how at the beginning and end of ASL sentences. There will usually be a hold or pause after the question and at the end of the sentence, and I think this is done for just emphasis when signing. I think it's important here too, with regard to the non-manuals, that your head is tilted to the side, your eyebrows are down and close together. And examples here, I've given the first sentence, our example 1 is, why is it so expensive? Would just be gloss, expensive why, as well as example 2, how old is he? And you would just, when gloss, sign HE. I think squeezing of the eyebrows is probably one of the most important things to remember when signing WH questions or information seeking questions. So a few final thoughts that I wanted to share with you would be just to remind you that ASL is a visual language. So it's important that as we're learning the vocab and the different signs, that we do try and incorporate the non-manuals, because it really does make a difference. I know it can be difficult, or you might feel like you maybe are overwhelmed at times, but be patient and practice, and eventually it will start to come together. And I think the professors do a really good job in just doing the 8 different sentence structures every single week, that you're able to practice them, and before you know it, you're not just thinking about the vocab, but you're able to start incorporating some of them non-manuals, and you'll be surprised when you get to go to a deaf event, or you see deaf people speaking that, or not signing, that you'll be able to understand a few signs that they're doing. Good luck and have a blessed day.